ladies and gentlemen, and our distinguished guests of this evening. I welcome you all to this lecture. I hope you can all hear me. So let's begin this event with the Buddhist way, with a verb and a good sense of fulfillment. My name is Madhulika Narasimhan. I'm a student of the MA program Sociology at South Asian University. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to present the panel for today's lecture. Professor Gananath Obeyesekere, the speaker for this evening. Professor Patricia Uberoi, chair for today's lecture. Professor Sasanka Pereira, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, South Asian University. And Professor G.K. Chadha, President, South Asian University. I request the panel to please take their place on the stage. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, gentlemen. I request now my colleagues Arpana Bharti and Padmini Jha to please present the bouquets to Professor Uberoi and Professor Rajni Obeyesekere. To start this contemporary knowledge lecture series, I kindly invite the Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences at South Asian University, Professor Sasanka Pereira.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me wish you a very good evening. But before we go any further, those of you who want to come forward, please feel free to do so because we have plenty of seats in front. First, I would like to welcome Professor Gananath Obeyesekere and Professor Rajni Obeyesekere to New Delhi, and also thank them for being with us today. Let me also welcome all of you on behalf of the Faculty of Social Sciences, South Asian University. It is good to see so many people when one comes from a background where an audience meant for 85 people can attract 3. It now horrifies me to think that only a few days ago, I nearly had to take the decision to cancel this lecture, given Professor Obeyesekere's recent bout with a particularly nasty strain of bacteria. But true to style, he was determined to come and has insisted 1 hour for his talk, which we have given him naturally. But we have decided to cancel the question and answer session that we had initially planned, taking into account his health conditions. But we do have an interactive workshop with him tomorrow at the South Asian University, focused on the idea of doing ethnographic debate. I'm sure you have got the information, so if you want to join that, please feel free to do so. The Faculty of Social Sciences at South Asian University already hosts a number of academic outreach programs. But this is the first major public event initiated by the faculty as well as the university. From this year onwards, the contributions to contemporary knowledge lecture series will take place each year in January under the auspices of the Faculty of Social Sciences. What we have in mind is to invite a scholar whose work speaks for itself from any part of the world. Our only expectation is that his or her work would inspire us in reading our own circumstances. In this context, I am sure you would agree with me that Professor Obeyesekere is the best possible person to initiate this series. When the Faculty of Social Sciences at South Asian University was established in 2011, we were quite mindful of the fact that the journey ahead was an uphill one, and not a leisurely walk in the park. Metaphorically and in practical terms, it has been a walk in a minefield, which sometimes allowed us moments of respite to traverse through parks as well. Today's lecture is one such moment. But then, we in the region are quite used to such realities. Despite some negative press recently that we have received as a university, I believe as a faculty we have learned from our experiences, have taken the challenges we faced in a stride, and lived up to the goals we had set for ourselves. Hurdles have to be considered a necessary part of setting up an institution. We are also quite aware that our efforts are unfolding in the immediate vicinity of a number of other great institutions in the region, which includes Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University. While from the beginning, we have been keen to learn and to collaborate with these and other key institutions in Delhi and other cities in South Asia, our efforts should never be understood as a matter of simple simulation. Far from it, we are in the process of building an institution, a set of practices, and an institutional tradition that will be truly ours in times to come. In short, we are in the business of making history and not simply becoming its footnotes. Of course, whether this dream comes true or not remains to be seen. I am very grateful to Professor Patricia Uberoi for accepting our invitation to chair today's proceedings in the midst of a very busy schedule. It makes no sense for me to introduce Professor Uberoi to an audience such as this in Delhi, except to say very briefly, she was formerly Professor of Sociology at the Institute of Economic Growth, Delhi, and is at present the Vice Chairperson at the Institute of Chinese Studies, also in Delhi. She is also one of the members of the community of sociologists, along with my friend Ravindra Kaur and Sujata Patel and so on, who helped set up the Department of Sociology at South Asian University, and as a result we have certain spot for Professor Uberoi and some of the others. In addition, and perhaps much more importantly, she is the star in that excellent film, My Mother India by Safina Uberoi. So that's all I would like to say in terms of introducing Professor Uberoi. Now, Professor Uberoi, I leave it in your hands to take over the rest of the proceedings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Pereira, for those undue compliments. Vice Chancellor, Professor Chadha, our speaker, Professor Obeyesekere, and everyone here, so many old friends in this audience. It's a real honor to have been associated so far with the activities of the sociology section of the South Asian University. And as you will have heard from the rather immodest claims of the department chair, this department is trying to be something more than a clone or competitor of the other departments in the major universities in Delhi and in India, and to somehow realize a vision of a South Asian perspective on sociology. You wouldn't think that the other countries of South Asia are very far away, but in sociology as practiced in India, they seem to be a very, 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 very distant places. So this attempt to bring a new vision of a region or a regional vision to the practice of sociology is something that I think we should welcome, and I think it is a step in the right direction, And for myself, I would like the region to be expanded even a little further into other parts of Asia. Professor Obeyesekere is not a newcomer to Delhi, nor his charming wife, whom many of you will have the privilege of meeting. He's been a refreshing presence here intermittently, just a few years ago, I think, at the CSDS. And I use the word refreshing deliberately. As you will see, he's brilliant, he's iconoclastic, he's argumentative, and he has style. Some of you will have read a lot of his brief biodata is in the circulated literature, so I don't need to say any more. But I think he would be an example of what one would like to retrieve of Asian or South Asian cosmopolitanism that has somehow it has to be retrieved. His father studied Ayurvedic medicine in India, and his family was exposed to many cultures, many languages, and so on. His education, I don't think it says so in the brochure, it came alive, he says in one interview, with his degree in English literature, which many of us would think is perhaps a not very appropriate beginning for a sociologist. In his case, he turned it to the greatest advantage. He developed simultaneously an interest in anthropology, I guess sort of maybe self-taught, via literature. Somewhere he says that he read all the authors no one reads today because they were considered old-fashioned. And again, he returned to these authors or examples of past writers in his own work. He also developed in those days an interest in folklore, which is regarded as rather antiquarian, but actually is deeply related to his continuing interest in history. He was somehow a breakaway in that he didn't follow the usual path to London and Oxford, but went off instead to the United States when he had no need to do so. And there again, he studied what one might think of normative anthropology, doing a village study of the relationship between kinship and land ownership. But all along, he had a fascination for Freud, then for Max Weber, then for history. Of Freud, he said it was an emotional attachment. Of Max Weber, an intellectual attachment. And he has become one of the major writers in social and cultural anthropology and a pioneer of work in psychoanalytic anthropology, exploring the relationship between psychoanalysis and anthropology. One of the other aspects of his work is a critique of Western culture, but also a critique of Asian cultures, or Sri Lankan culture in particular, and a great interest in the methodologies of fieldwork. As he says, explains in some contexts, his role, particularly in his time, was of a non-Western anthropologist looking at his own society, and yet practicing his anthropology in the West, where Western anthropologists studied others as the other. His work has been interdisciplinary in every sense of the word, comparative in the very best sense of the word. And at one stage, he was asked to write his advice to students. I think many students here in the audience. He said, "Don't be seduced by current trends. Don't be seduced by the fashionable. Did you say that? Yes? Oh no. It's on record. The problem here is that Professor Uberoi is himself absolutely iconic and extremely seductive. And even worse than that, because students readers fall in love with his works and his style is so seductive. The trouble is he keeps changing from one thing to another. So his range is so great that no sooner is one seduced by one wonderful work than one has to turn around and be seduced by another of a completely different order. So I introduced him here, and we are all looking forward very much to your talk, which has a surprising title, which I'm sure everyone has noted, and is something which will speak in iconoclastic terms to the sociology of India as it is hitherto practiced in this region.
I hope you can hear me. I'm a little bit deaf, so I can't hear others. I hope you can hear me. It's a real pleasure to be here. Of course, these kind words that were said about me, I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, when Sasanka Uberoi invited me, I never expected that I would fall ill. See, so I'm really coming straight from the hospital to the podium. If I collapse, I think there's some ambulance over there. Now, one of the things that illness does is that it interrupts your whole project to some degree. So I've given a new term for my illness. I call it virus interruptus. Jokes aside now, I must tell you one thing is that I almost never read anything out of a text. That's one of my policies. So don't look at that thing that they gave you. You have to pull from here, there, and everywhere and hope it makes sense. Oops. My gosh. See how absent-minded one can be. Thanks. Anyhow, I'll start my inquiry with a quotation from Friedrich Nietzsche, an aphorism 229 in The Will to Power. It's a beautiful, beautiful aphorism. And this is what he says. One must be very human to say, I don't know this, to afford ignorance. It's a very important thing. We academics sometimes think we know things, But actually, we have to recognize that in some areas, even in the areas that we are familiar with, we are ignorant. You see? So this paper is about my own ignorance and a gradual realization is not the truth. You never find the truth. You see? The gradual realization that I had made some mistakes and there's some attempt to correct it, reinvigorate my mistakes. The problem here is simply this. Many of us Sri Lankans, including scholars, simply thought there were no Brahmins in Sri Lanka. That's based on the fact that, today there are no Brahmins around. I'm looking all over. I see Brahmins around some of my friends here, but up there, No Brahmins. You see? So is it in the 19th century. So we lived in this ignorance that somehow or other there were no Brahmins in Sri Lanka. The dissipation of this ignorance came out of certain kinds of work we are now engaged in. Both field work, trying to link up field work with classical Buddhist chronicles, and also we have been collecting a lot of palm leaf manuscripts written by what I call popular intelligentsia, village people. Actually, use their stylus and then write about certain events. These manuscripts I have used a native term and call them Vittipo, event books, events of the past. There are many such Vittipos. There are, for example, a fascinating series of texts recently edited by Buddhist scholar Obeyesekere, which deals with the boundaries of the island of Sri Lanka. They are called Sri Lanka Kadaimpota, and beautifully described, you see, a certain sense of the geographical entity that we call Sri Lanka. There are also Kadai meaning boundary books of districts. Again, quite interesting. There are what we call Bandara villages. That is, Bandaras are the aristocrats in the Canadian kingdom. They are genealogies. Lot of interesting things. So this sort of resulted in a kind of rethinking of periods of Sri Lankan history, you see, with one real difficulty. This is what I scribbled this morning, but it's pretty awful, I can't read it myself. And the difficulty is this. Many of these texts are written at a particular point in history. That is, let us say, the 15th century or the 16th century. But they refer to events sometimes 200 or 300 years in the past. So there has to be a distinction between the written text and the referential text. The referential text can deal with events, 200-300 years ago. The written text deals with contemporary events. I'll give a very simple example. In the Canadian area, for example, there are villages which were at one time Tamil speakers. You see, even today they are considered slightly off. But that's so to speak, the written text. The written texts are written around the 15th or 16th century. The referential text refers to a king called Gajavahu, who died in the 2nd century CE or the 11th century CE. So the referential text, I think, has very little historical validity, but it has a psychic validity in the sense that people think that these people were there from a long historical time. So this is one of the problems that we have to face. Sometimes the referential history and the written history are contemporaneous. You see, the written history refers to events that are occurring. So, what I have done, therefore, is to present you what produced the joke. What made me realize that the Brahmins are around, you see? So I'm going to deal with two written texts. One is called the Matale Kadayim Pota. That is the boundaries of the district of Matale. It's a huge district south of Kandy, you see. This was written in the time of one of our great queens, Rajasingha II, in the middle of the 17th century. 100 years later, we have another book with the same title, Matale Kadayim Pota. you see, and it is commissioned by Sri Lanka, one of the Nayaka kings of South India who came to Kandy and was crowned there. So we had a 100-year period, and in both you see the written text and the contemporary record the same. The king's informants are pointing out, oh, these are the people in the district of Madhuri. Take the first one. In the first one, the brother of Raja Singha II, you see, one true hero in Sinhala history. You see, he trounced the Portuguese, so he's become a very popular figure. His brother is the king of Madhuri. He's in a little village called Gurapala, that's where his palace is. Now, Raja Singha tells his brother, try to muster, you see, an army from the low country, not from the low country, from what is called the Hattarakode, not a huge area, which is a kind of buffer zone between the low country occupied by the Portuguese and the Candian kings on the other side. So in between, you have this called the Auditorium, which essentially is 4 districts. When the king goes to the Auditorium, a very interesting thing happens. He constructs a temporary octagon called a Patripur, octagonal shape. Those of you who have been to Kandy will see a more permanent structure, but it's a temporary structure. And the octagon represents the 8 corners of the universe, and the king is in the center. So he meets his chiefs in the octagon, and he's Bhupati, the lord of the universe, you see. And he asked the chiefs in this area, can you go to the low country and muster some forces to capture or fight the Portuguese? And the poor chief said, we can't. It's Portuguese territory. And there are Sinhala people who are on the side of the Portuguese. And of course, some of these kings had little patience. He chopped off their heads. And then went back to Gurapala, his town in Matale, and asked 2 of his informants or consultants, who are the major families in the northern part of this northern district, in order to, of course, muster forces to fight the Portuguese. And the king's informants tell him, look here, there are 3 or 4 families that are named, and beyond that, there are very, very, very powerful Vedda families. So-called aborigines, I don't believe in this aboriginal stuff anyhow. Hunters, Vedda families. And what is even more fascinating, there are 5 female Vedda warriors guarding the frontiers. You see? Very interesting historical information. And then he says, of course, sir, there are always Brahmins. You see, and it gives a list. The Brahmins are given, their names are given, but the term is Brahman Rala. Rala in Sinhalese is a sort of a distinguished term which means gentleman. So, here it is. He says, the informant says, that these Brahmins claim that they, in the time of King Devanampiya and the time of King Ashoka in India, Prince Arita went with a group of Brahmins to India to get the branch of the sacred Bodhi and bring it to Sri Lanka. Now, it is indeed true that the Mahavansa does mention the fact that there was a king called, a chief called Arita, who went to get the Bodhi, you see. But none of the Brahmins mentioned in this text are ever mentioned in any other historical record, you see. So, it is a group, it's an invented kind of thing here. And here are some of the Brahmins. Somadanta Brahmana Rala, I'm telling the term Rala, they have already become, so to speak, part of the huge, amorphous Goigama or Vellara or Pharmaka. Huge. Sri Vishnu Brahmana Rala, no more comment is necessary. Sri Rama Brahmana Rala, who came from Sri Danta Desha region, that's Dantapura in Kalinga. Then it goes on to say, Somananda or Sonadanta Brahmana was given in charge of Nagapattalama in the village of Mara. Now, of course, this is very interesting because Nagapattinam is a South Indian, very important town, and obviously people who have come from Nagapattinam kept that name and call themselves people of Nagapattinam. That's been wiped out of the maps now. We don't have any Tamils around that area. Sri Vishnu Brahmana Rala settled in Aluvihara, very important place. That's where the Buddhist scriptures were originally written in 2 BC or thereabouts. Sri Rama Brahmana Rala settled in Ratwata, also an important village. And so on it goes, you see. All these Brahmana Ralas who claim to come with the sacred branch of the Bodhi tree are now ensconced in this upper part of the Makare district, and they have been given in charge of villages, you see. Now when you look at M2, what I call M2, you see someone like a sort of secret agent or something like that. M1 is the first one, M2 is the one written in the time of PTC and so on. You see? When you come to M2, that's a real change. Can I have some more please? And the king, Sri Lanka, summons 2 chiefs. One, a singular chief, and the second, believe it or not, a Vedda chief. You see, the Vedda is called Vedibandar, aristocratic Vedda. You see, his village is given. We visited the village, by the way. Spectacularly beautiful place up in the hills of Mara. I'm not going to tell you where it is, all the tourists will be going there. Anyhow, he is called Vedi Raja in his village. When he comes to the Kenyan court, he becomes Bandara and aristocrat. No Raja business. Anyhow, once I'll give you a few of the interesting people. According to M2, that is the latex, a woman named Brahmana Ramanika, daughter of Kopuru Brahmana, resides at Ratwata. Ratwata is a place where the earlier Brahmanas were settled down, and she is one of their descendants. Okay? Ratwata. I'll come to that later. These texts do not refer to the fact that they came from the territory of the Buddha. It's called Madhya Pradesh. In the figure of topography, Madhya Pradesh is not Madhya Pradesh, but the area of the Buddha's dispensation. You see? The male member of the same line, Sri Rama Brahmana, resides in another village. What emerges from the preceding account is that some of the most distinguished Sri Lankans, such as the Ratwatas, to which the former Prime Minister Sirimao Bandaranayake and her daughter, former President Chandrika Bandaranayake, originally belonged to these Brahmin settlers of Ratwata. That was their name before they married into the Bandaranayake. So, well, you see, they may be Sudra, but pretty good ones. Then, as we mentions all sorts of interesting people. That is, mentions Hirigot Brahmanarada, completely new person. Hirigot is a singularization of Surya Gotra. Hirigot Bandana, Hirigot Brahmanarada's son settles in a village called Kapatipala, and they are the descendants of one of the most powerful Canadian families. You see, the Kapatipalas who led the 1817-1818 rebellion against the British and almost brought them to their knees. You see, another hero of the Sri Lanka. Didn't do him much good, they chopped off his head. But another member of that same clan or group is in dire straits. He is cultivating long beans in a kind of useless place. So, you know, there might have been a rule of primogeniture or something, and you have one person got a huge chunk of territory, the other just long beans. Then you have in M2 a very interesting thing where another Brahmana called Karahagala, that is a village, Brahmanarala of Karahagala village. His daughter is married to a fellow called Herat Bandara. Now, Herat Bandara is an upper class going on, you see. So the Brahmana's daughter marries a very wealthy person with extensive properties, but she's moved out of the Brahmana. So this same Brahmanarala has a very, very interesting account. He had got a farmer to cultivate a sweating plot, you see, on one side of a stream. And this farmer was given this plot. The farmer's daughter ran with a chandala. Now the interesting thing in this text is no punishment is given for this. If the woman ran with a chandala, that's their business, you see. There's nothing to worry about that. No punishment at all. However, the Brahmin found that that land was polluted because of the woman wearing a chandala. So he moved to the other side of the stream and gave it to this land company. So this text, therefore, gives us some very, very interesting accounts of the movement of these in one district, you see. And of course, some of them emerging as very high status members of this vast, amorphous farmlands. Now, along with this, we are collecting in our Burmese manuscripts. Some of them are not being edited. I have edited one or two of them. We are still in the process of collecting them. And this is a count of migrants coming from South India into the northern part of Sri Lanka, which had been depopulated after the fall of the colonial kingdoms in the 12th and 13th centuries. This depopulated region was called the Vani, and as it's South India, it was classified into 18 sub-districts. 18, of course, is a magical number, a standard number. That doesn't mean it has any kind of objective reality. 7 and 18. Everything is 7 and 18. Think about it, and you'll find that this is true of Indian material also. Anyhow, we have about a dozen of these texts of Kshatriyas, merchants, and Brahmins coming from South India into Sri Lanka and be welcomed by the kings. Now, one of these texts, literally dozens, more than that, you see, deals with a group of people called the Mallas or the Malalas from South India who have been waging war against the Maravas. Maravas, of course, you are familiar with the Ramnad. You see these warrior groups in the Ramnad are Maravas. And as a result, they leave the country and take ship and come to Sri Lanka. These people had a hell of a poor idea of geography, by the way, you see. So they go to Marchina, to China, all those places, to the Black Sea, the Red Sea, the White Sea, and ultimately they land in the northern part of Sri Lanka, you know. But before they come, they go to Ayatthaya, that is the Salem district, you see, and there are two other groups join them, Brahmins and Chettis, Chetty merchants, you see. So there are three ships with Kshatriyas, Magadhas, Brahmanas, and merchants. A storm at sea, these get scattered. And then, by some miracle, they invoke the gods and so forth. All these three groups meet in a place north of in Sri Lanka, south of Jaffna, in the area which we now call Putla. You see? They settle there. And in other words, I'm reading a hell of a lot into the symbolism of the fact that the three groups are separate. The storm at sea shows that they are separate groups, and then they are brought together as sort of a kind of unified group. Along with them come the various service stars, which are listed, 30 or 40 on this. What's the significance of this? What struck me was that it is not just the Brahmins who are coming, but everyone is coming. You see? The Kshatriyas are coming, the merchants are coming, not just Tom, Dick, and Harry or Obeyesekere, but just distinguished people. You see? They are coming. And what is the strategy? When the Kshatriya people come, they call themselves the Arya Vansa, the noble Vansa. They are met on the coast by a Vedna interpreter who takes them to what is called Sita Korte. Very few people understand the meaning of it. Sita was one of the capitals of the Sinhala kingdom, later, much later. According to tradition, it is a place where Ravana kept Sita. You see, Kotua is the fort. Now, once again, I think people will be running to Sita or the Kotua, and that again is no longer in the match. You see, but they go to the king who is in Sita or the Kotua and make him some presents. Dato, you say, darshan. You present this gifts to the king. Some of the gifts are not all that great, but it is a recognition of tribute. Tribute is central to all of these ancient kingdoms. Tribute recognizes that the king is the overall head, and you're sort of, in some sense, lower in the scale. So however much Kshatriya you have become, at once they are converted into singers. At once. The king ties a scarf around them and gives them singular names, and gives them very important positions in these depopulated areas which badly need, you see, people to settle down. And some of them become governors of that area. So with the merchants, and so with the Brahmins who come. So I'll give you one quotation from one of the groups, Brahmin groups. The Brahmin group that carried one of the forts near Putlam according to a text that in my manuscript collection called One Niviti, that is events of the one week, presented 2 elephants after establishing the Devali for God Vasudeva on Munneswaram cliff, as at that time a great Vishnu shrine, and they were given with villagers Bamanuwara. Bamanu means Brahman. See, Bamanu village. Brahman village. Bamanu together, cluster of village homes belonging to Brahman. Very unusual term. Bamini Gold, female Brahman village, and so on. And several of these are pretty extensive. Very extensive properties that were given. So you see, these properties are in this sort of one area. For a long time I was not sure what Bamini Gurla is. You see, the way I figured it is that many migrants come without their village. So when Brahmins come, there were villages on which they could marry. You see, upper caste, farmer caste or Vaidama caste villages. That is where the Brahmini goes around. That fits in with certain marriages of later royalty also who married from distinct villages. You see, so that's how I interpret it. Brahmini goes. And very interesting visitation of Brahmins come once again. Here we have to make a distinction between the written text and the referential text. You see, the written text was written perhaps around the 15th century and refers to one of the two great singular kings, Brahman II, who lived in the early 13th century. Wonderful king, one of the few kings that abolished the death penalty. You see. Very interesting man. The story is that the king was afflicted with a deadly disease called henadosa, lightning disease, that is either a serious illness or struck lightning. And then number 7 again, nothing is 1807. 7 Brahmins were invited from Kapilavastu, that is the Madhya, that is the Buddha's area of birth and dispensation. And they came, and the text lists all the various yagas, homas, and all of that to cure the king. Now, of course, we don't know if it's true or not, but we do know that the people thought it was a true evil. If I'm overdoing it, let me know one time. Just do it. Knock on the way. Purohitas are better known in the history of Sri Lanka. But even that, the monks who wrote the chronicles just downplayed. Sometimes totally ignored it. We had to pick the idea of Brahman Purohitas from other kinds of literary texts. You know? So one of the most fascinating instances of Brahmanic influence by Purohitas comes from the reign of one of the great Sri Lankan kings, Pratama I, 1153 to 1186. Not that great in my opinion, but then that's a particular historical, it's a great time. Monks who compiled the chronicles naturally tried to downplay the competition. And this view has gone into contemporary histories, such that little or no reference is made to them, made to Brahman Purohitas, until we reach the birth and reign of Brahman I, one of Sri Lanka's greatest kings, who was as much a follower of Brahmin ideology as he was of his Buddhism. If Hindu kings tended to feed monks and give them maintenance villages and other emoluments, Sinhala kings performed similar meritorious actions in respect of monks. It is therefore especially significant when some kings also supported Brahmins with benefices, lands, and other emoluments. Even before Prakrama was born, Brahmanic rites seem to have been employed by his father, Mana Bharana, who had only 2 daughters but no male heirs. Like many a king in both Buddhist and Hindu worlds, Mana Bharana temporarily gave up the administration of his kingdom, one of the small kingdoms, and spent 7 or 8 months engaged in pious works in order to obtain a son. One day, near morn, he had a dream of a wild elephant emerging into the room. Of course, it is like the dream of Buddha's mother, you see. No wonder the Brahmin Purohitas predicted that the son shall bear on him the marks of future power. Now follows a neat combination of Buddhist and Brahmanic rituals to ensure a propitious delivery. Thus, Buddhist monks recited paritas, benedictory verses, some even today, over and over again, and Mana Bharana gave alms and gifts to countless beggars and repaired many ruined viharas and relic shrines and reservoirs. Along with the Buddhist rites performed by Mana Bharana were the Brahmanic ones, details of which were surely understated and probably not fully understood by the monk compiler of the Mahavamsa. But he says, rites like the Homa sacrifice held to be salutary he had performed by the Purohita and other Brahmanas, it versed in the Veda and the Vedanta. And when a son was born with extraordinary astrological signs, the king in Buddhist spirit set many free who lay bound in fetters in prison and gave splendid alms to Brahmanas and Samanas. And once again we are presented with the other side of the belief system. I quote again the Mahavamsa. According to the rules laid down in the Veda, the monarch had birth rites and other ceremonies performed for the boy. He then summoned the house priests and other Brahmanas versed in the law of bodily marks, and he charged them with the determination of the body marks of the boy. The ceremony of eating the first rice meal was also according to Brahmanic rituals. The crucial Brahmanic ritual of the tonsure, the symbolic cutting of the hair, is followed later with a huge festival. The ruler informed his general that my son is grown to manhood and is ripe for admission, that is, for the performance of the Vedic ritual of the twice born, or Upanayana, where the youth is ritually inducted in adulthood, which entails the wearing of the sacred thread. Oh, which right, so good. So I see that this Buddhist king wore this right through. To commemorate the occasion, a great spring festival was held in town near the residence of the king. So it seems that the Brahmana Purohitas were, along with Buddhist monks, gurus of the past. It is they who organized calendrical rituals and recommended astrological propitious times for royal events. Even Prakrama II, my favorite king, by the way, not even the king abolishes at that time, idealized as a very Buddhist king, rightly so. According to a Sinhala scholar, Amaradasan Hinagamage, he said that Brahmins and Brahmanical practices at the court, such that a compromise with Buddhist ways had been made. That is a mistake. There was no compromise with Buddhist ways. If at all, those compromises occurred a long time ago and continue in our modern times. The fact that kings, you see, we must assume that there were Brahmins aplenty in the kingdom, in these kingdoms. And the existence of Brahmin functionaries and the practice of Brahmanic rituals did not mean that either Prabhupada I or Prabhupada II were not Buddhist kings. They were. To some Brahmanas and Bhags, he gifted slaves, oxen, buffaloes, horses, elephants, cows, gems. Of course, in my reading this like maidens also. We've been reading it a long time. The text goes on to say that he supported other sects such as Pantarans. He gifted in increasing proportions money, corn, clothes, ornaments, beds, and conveyances to Brahmanas and Bhags, delighting their hearts, and was himself delighted by the clamor of their gratitude. Now we come to one of the last great kings of Sri Lanka. Brahman the sixth, you see, who ruled for 40 years in the early part of the 15th century. 50 years, a long reign of peace. And he was the last king to represent the great ideal of singular kings, that is, to unite, not unite, that's a bad word, to bring about the three parts of Srilanka, that is, the Rajarata, the northern part, Mayarata, the western part, Runa, the southern part, under the Srilanka umbrella. The last king to do that. And he brought Jaffna under control. Now, you would think that this great Buddhist king, you see, will do what most of us do. When I die, of course, the monks will come and have a very interesting kind of a funeral ritual. Not Prabhupada VI. He is highly educated, so Pandit, worse in several languages, good Buddhist. But the rituals at his death were by Brahman Purohitas. And in this case, we can pin it down because he has a grant given to two Brahmin Purohitas in the western province called the Orvala grant, very important grant, in which he lists the names of these people. And it's published using the archaeological survey of Sri Lanka. This important grant not only suggests the Purohitas at this time, but they were clearly Vaishnavas. That we know now. You see, all these Sri Rama, all these people are Vaishnavas. Many of the kings of Sri Lanka had Vaishnavite alternative names, Perumal. The Sri Lankan king, they are trying to see scholars are trying to take this under the carpet. You see. Oh, come on, these kings Perumal, that's a kind of thing. But the fact is, many of them are called Perumal. And in this case, the two Brahmins are, their names are you. I can't figure it out. I have to talk to some good Telugu scholar. Ojjahalu Palaya Porukku Perumalum of the Kaundinya Gotra. There you get, for the first time, a clear indication of a Brahmin Gotra. And his nephew also was called, given the Harita Gotra. For the first time. Now, the translator of this text thinks that these are Telugu Brahmins are, I have no way of verifying. How much time do we have? Huh? Oh, okay. I think I know. You mentioned that many of the Brahmins, not all, Vaishnavas. Now, another feature of contemporary neglect is the centrality of the Vishnu cult in Sri Lanka. Absolute centrality. It is not that the Sri Lankan Buddhists worship Vishnu in the sense that the Hindus worship Vishnu. If the Hindus thought the Buddha is the ninth avatar of Vishnu, the Buddhists thought that the Vishnu is an avatar of the Buddha. So in the rituals for Vishnu or for another Skanda, the Kapulacharya said, the priest, local priest said, Madhubuduinavu Hamaduruvane, you who will be future Buddha. You see? So the Vishnu gods have been incorporated into the Bodhisattva Kata. So one of the very, very interesting things is that in the 14th and 15th centuries, a whole series of poems called Sandesha poetry, based on Kalidasa's Emeritus, were written in Sinhala. Difficult to read, but very, very interesting, beautiful poetry, written by most of it by monks. And one of the earliest of these, in the reign of Brahman VI, whom I just mentioned, is called Parve Sandesha, the pigeon's message. It is in this pigeon's message, the pigeon is to take a message to the popular god of Vishnu at Devinura or Devundara. Devundara is in the southernmost tip of Sri Lanka. From that point onwards was Antarctica, no land mass. And Devinura or Devundara is the god's city, the city of God. So many of the Sandesha poetry sends messages to the god of the city to produce an AI in this case, to bring about victory of Sapama Kumara, one of the chiefs who conquered Jaffna, you see, and so forth, like that. Now, it is clear, therefore, that from at least the 11th century onwards, the Vishnu cult at Devundara was a very, very powerful place. And that is why all these messages were sent there. Ibn Battuta, our great Moroccan wanderer, who lived around 1325 to 1354 in his travels, tells us about this city. This Moroccan wanderer, after visiting the sacred footprint of the Buddha, to him Father Adam good morning, traveled to Dinava, the great temple of Vishnu, that very well known by this time. And I quote him. In this town, there is an idol known as Dinava. In a vast temple, in which there are about 1,000 Brahmins and yogis, and about 500 women, daughters of the infidels, who sing and dance every night in front of the idol. The city and all its revenues form an endowment belonging to the idol, from which all who live in the temple and who visit are supplied with food. The idol itself is made of gold, about a man's height, and in the place of his eyes it has two great rubies, which I was told shone at night like lamps. It is very clear, therefore, that is one of the great Vishnu signs. But nothing to do with man's salvation or women's salvation. You see, salvation is still the purview of Buddhism. When you want certain things done, victory in war, or a daughter for the king, then you go to these shrines. This great temple was destroyed by the Portuguese in 1587 or 1580. Later kings repaired it, and nowadays there are no Brahmins. I think they are descendants of the Brahmins. They are called Kapuralas, that is, officials at devalayas or shrines of the gods. You see. But I suspect there's a village close by called Pamaludana, Brahman village, which I think indicates their former presence. While many kings supported this shrine, we know at least one king, Prabhupada IV, another interesting king, a near contemporary of Ibn Battuta, 1302 to 1326, who it is said constructed in Devapura, that is Devinura, in the premises of Vishnu, a long temple consisting of 2 stories, provided with 4 pairs of gates for the image of the recumbent lion, the Buddha. More to our purpose, he founded in the charming district of Mayadan a new town with fine walls and gate towers. There he had a fair temple erected to the gods with lofty spires and 2 stories, provided with walls and gate towers, gopurams. Placed there a glorious statue of the lotus-hued king of the gods, Vishnu. Placed and celebrated a great festival. To me it is clear that the divine city created by Prabhupada IV on the Hindu architectural model with its gopurams, house of gods, but prominent among them was a lotus-hued king of the gods. We must also expect, you see, in this temple, the continuity of the tradition of their body, their breast, female dancers. Every single Sunday poem, written by monks, mind you, every single one of them, mentioned in all of the places, all of these shrines, whether it is in Colombo, Carimere, place, these temple dancers. Not only that, Prabhupada IV, you see, I'm sure with the great outrage of some of our contemporary similar Buddhists, you see, had female temple dancers in the very temple of the Princeton. Nowadays, women can't go with a thing, they have to wear a shawl. Puritanism has taken over the conscience of the nation. Anyhow, I'm in this already. People are getting bored. I'm getting bored. Shrines to the gods. We're talking of Vishnu. We are talking of Vibhishan. We are talking of Skanda. We are talking of the goddess Patini or Kanali. We are talking of other gods. You see. These shrines are almost sometimes independent, sometimes attached to the Buddhism. So there was no contradiction there. Monks didn't officiate like this. I pointed out that in some sense, when the Brahmins came, they became Sudras because this huge, well-known, but they are all from the Indic point of view, they are sort of Sudras. They may deny it, but that's what they are. So, but when you look at it, the Brahmins were the upper crust of it. So one could say maybe they were demoted, one could say maybe they were promoted. You see? Pick your pick. I mean, it's a very interesting historical phenomenon. I mean, after all, some of the very powerful families of today come from that sort of true. Now, my mistake, my ignorance, was that I put this emphasis on the Brahmins. But the fact remains that I pointed out in these migration rituals, the Kshatriyas also came, the merchants also came. In addition to that, there are beautiful rituals which I think Sasanka has studied some of them. I have studied some of them, and I have a long description in my book on Bhakti. Gods, foreign gods coming, foreign demons coming, foreign merchants, Brahmins, kings, they coming. So all these rituals have a standard sort of scenario. In the ritual arena, there are two performers who hold a stick or barrier. You see, one is let us say God Vishnu, the other is a goddess Bhakti. And then you get this strange creature coming from out there. Sometimes it's a demon, sometimes it's a god. Let's say sometimes a Brahman. Whatever it is, this person comes here wearing these funny clothes, and he tries to enter the city gates, the barrier representing the city gates, and also symbolically the entrance to Sri Lanka. So, to start with, this strange creature, let us say one of the gods, I described that at great length, but the god called Nehru, for example, he comes up there and he speaks a funny gibberish. You see? He speaks a funny gibberish, and the two gods at the barrier say, "We don't understand. Clear out! Get out!" Then they continue with this same talk, and a lot of vulgarity. Yours truly enjoyed that vulgarity. A lot of philosophy, a lot of vulgarity. And sometimes, for example, the people at the barrier say, the gods at the barrier say, "You have to bring a letter of authority from the Buddha." So, this guy puts his letter of authority on his foot and hops around and gives it to the god. The gods are very prim, very liquid. What are you doing? It is impossible. Go away, you can't come into this country. Then he speaks a Tamil accent or funny accent. Then he says, that's not the way to worship our God. The next time, he ties it on his knee. You see. Again he shifts. And the third time, he has it on his hand and gives it to the gods of the gate. The barrier is open, and people come. I just think is a kind of naturalization process. You see. Alien figures, gods, merchants, Kshatriyas, demons also, you see, are the similicized, Buddhicized, you see, and then, so to speak, naturalized and subject. So here we are, and I will just read the conclusion and if I can find it in this awful mess. Says concluding remarks. Lost my glasses. Oh, it's here. In conclusion, I would say that the Sudra faith of the Brahmins do not seem to be all that bad, given the fact that many of them have moved into the aristocratic segment of the amorphous Vedic class. I mentioned a few of these distinguished families, and I know of others. One of my friends, Chairperson, was Undersecretary of the UN in charge of disarmament. He told me that, look here, my ancestral name is Purohita. So there's lots of these people. I hope when I publish it, these things will come more and more to the surface. Further, it is possible, indeed possible, that a few Brahmin ritual specialists might have descended the caste ladder. Many years ago, I knew a fine performer of Bali, that is, planetary rituals, belonging to the drummer caste in a remote village near Sigiriya, part of the old Mandi, who was generally addressed and known as Bhatta Guru Nanak. The latter part of the term Guru Nanak simply meant Lordly Guru. This is an honorific given to drummers. And any male member of the caste is called Guru Nanak. Bhatta, however, is a very unusual term for drummers, and it struck me as I write this essay that Bhatta Guru Nanak might have had a Brahmin ancestor, because Bhatta is often prefixed to Brahmin names in many parts of India. Bhattacharya, Bhatta Guru Nanak, can be simply translated as Bhattacharya. Bhatta Guru Nanak was the last member of a distinguished line of Bali performers. And alas, he died many years ago, and I am not sure I will ever be able to verify my hypothesis of the Brahmin origin of his family name. And yet, who knows whether there are any other Bhatta Guru Nanak in that same region whom I failed to interview. It therefore seems I have no choice but to plead ignorance once again and reaffirm Nietzsche's maxim. One must be very humane to say, I don't know that to the 40 days.
An example of the engagement of anthropology and history in a new mode inspired by the recovery of the texts of what he called the popular intelligentsia. I love that. For me, at least, and I'm sure for the rest of you, it's very hard to believe that our speaker is the same person known in the history of anthropology as Jack the Giant Killer of the famed martial silence. Their battle was played out through the reinterpretation of the details of the death of Captain Cook in Hawaii in 1779. Well, I think we'll all read this text that has just been performed for us with great attention when we return. For me, again, there was a little, my curiosity was aroused by the 5 women warriors. And I would love to know more about those Amazon guardians of some faraway village in Sri Lanka. I request Professor Chada to make the presentation.
Professor Gananath Obeyesekere, Mrs. Obeyesekere, my esteemed friend, Professor Patricia Uberoi, my dear colleague, Professor Susan Pereira, teacher to one of us, Professor Ramana Thakur, colleagues at South Asian University and other institutions, friends, ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, our very dear students. I have only one thing to say, sir. The last sentence of your lecture, the best thing to do is to go to Nietzsche's maxim, to openly admit that people like me, a very average student of economics, wouldn't claim to know so much that you have said, but it's very clear to me, even as an ignorant social scientist, that what you have said, it goes back to many episodes, many analytical accounts to what we call ancient history. And your lecture was simply superb, full of erudition. My only regret is that why was South Asian University not born earlier, and why didn't we catch hold of you, people like you, earlier? But it's always better to look forward. I will therefore begin first by thanking Professor Pereira. It is he who took the initiative of catching hold of you, making you agree. And then I have every word of gratitude, appreciation, and thanks to you. In spite of your indifferent health, I don't know whether at this age I will be able to stand this train to the extent you have done it. I spoke to you yesterday, I could easily see. But then, this is a real, what we call, pandit. There are what we call, Sudra fate of the migrating Brahmins. But there are some Brahminic pravrittis also, That's how you look at your duty, your calling, as an instrument of inspiring confidence, erudition, learning, among others. I really no words to express gratitude on behalf of the university. I only wish and pray that you live long, grow more robust in your academic pursuits, keep on coming to us, educate us about whatever is your calling, and we will always be looking forward to your results, this sense of gratitude and admiration. Patricia, I've been thanking you too many times and perhaps too much every time, but nevertheless I can't fail to do it every time, because every time I discover that you are a different Patricia Uberoi. Thank you once again today also for being so kind to come and lend us your contribution to this. Last of all, I must thank all the colleagues, students and SAU. It is you who lend strength. It is you who are going to make this university as a real world-class university, and a university which would like to live not by only preaching or classroom lectures, but what we imbibe from the living tradition that Professor Uberoi has said before us. And with these words, may I say so, as a token of our respect for you, I think we have thought that the best thing we can do to express our appreciation and gratitude is to present you with a set of books. I hope it also sets us in kind of equal thinking pedestal, because at South Asian University also we will always believe in reading books and passing on books. Please accept this on our behalf. I will carry them for you. Thank you very much. Please, please.
Distinguished audience of the evening, please excuse me, my throat is suddenly acting against me. It's probably because I'm speaking after the likes of Professor Uberoi, Professor Uberoi, and of course, our student each other. It's my great privilege to propose the vote of thanks after the successful completion of an event such as this. The Faculty of Social Sciences is grateful to Professor Gananath Obeyesekere for readily agreeing to deliver this lecture and share his wisdom with us. I would also like to extend my gratitude to Professor Uberoi for agreeing to chair the event. Our faculty would like to acknowledge the unstinted support and contribution of funding which the President and Vice President of South Asian University, Professor G.K. Chadha and Professor Rajiv Ms. Seema Gupta, and their colleagues in administration has been crucial to the success of this event. I also want to place a word of thanks on behalf of this faculty to Professor Dev Pathak for coordinating this entire event. Thank you, sir. And to all the teachers in the Department of Sociology for their encouragement and constant support throughout. No event is possible without efficient foot soldiers, so we really need to acknowledge the support extended by the following people. Mr. Samson George, Mr. Aman Kumar, and Mr. Siddharth for all their help in organizing the event. Ms. Anoli Pereira for designing the poster and invitation cards. Mr. Ahebam Prahlad for his outreach work. Ms. Chaturi Gunatilake in Colombo for her valuable contribution in producing the booklet. Mr. Janaka Kottegora, University of Visual and Performing Arts Colombo for contributing to the cover design of the booklet. Thanks are definitely due to all my colleagues in the faculty who turned the organization of this event great fun. So thank you Anaika, Nafis, Parumita, Ragini Pant, Umesh Joshi, Manoj and all the others in the department. This proposal of thanks will definitely be incomplete without expressing our heartfelt gratitude to our Dean for making this event possible. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Pereira. Finally, it's an honor to thank all of you for your presence at this lecture. Thank you for coming.